Welcome. I'm Eric Malinowski, no W, no relation, co-president of Soma Action. And with me is Valerie Leyland, Soma Action's co-chair for the Democracy Action Committee. Soma Action is a grassroots organization dedicated to driving progressive change. And as part of that, we put out our voter guide for every election, interviewing and evaluating candidates about their support for the issues our committees are working on. Please note that questions are restricted to areas where our committees are active, so there are some important issues we don't cover, and we hope that voters will seek out candidates and learn more. So today we are joined by Jeff Grayzel, a candidate for New Jersey's 11th Congressional District. Jeff, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
Could you please introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for Congress?
Great. It's really great to be here. I am so excited to meet the members of SOMA and really excited to be running to represent you in Congress. There's a lot of reasons why I'm excited, and we'll get to that during the interview. But I'll start with a little bit about me. I was raised in New Jersey in Englewood, and my parents still live in the house that I grew up in. Spent the last 28 years here in Morris Township, New Jersey, after we moved out here for work. I am the current deputy mayor and former mayor of Morris Township. We have a township committee form of government where the mayor rotates every year. So in the last 6 years on the council, I've been the mayor 2 years and the deputy mayor 3 years, always in a leadership position here in Morris Township. I grew up, like I said, in Englewood, New Jersey, went to public high school. Went on to Cornell University, where I have degrees in economics and operations research engineering, which is math-based efficiency engineering. Went on to work for Bristol Myers Squibb for 13 years. And while at BMS, I went to school at night, taking one class a semester for 5 years to get my graduate degree in industrial engineering. And at Bristol Myers Squibb, I was working on international business development. So I was on the consumer product side of their business at the time. Not the pharma that most people know. We had a huge consumer business there, and I traveled the world developing our brands and products and trying to get them out into the world. I was on a big team that started our business in China and have been to China 13 times for weeks at a shot, and very familiar with international relations, so to speak, working cross-culturally to get things done and building businesses across the world. After that, I was traveling 40% of my time and wanted to start a family. So I left Bristol Myers and started working with my dad, who's a cardiologist, and trying to commercialize some of his medical devices, him being the doctor, me being the engineer. And we were somewhat successful at that. Most recently, I am working at another startup working on a robotics type of model, which I won't go into too much depth in, but another new startup experience leaning into my engineering. I want to just go back a little bit to my formative years with my parents. Like I said, my dad was a doctor. My mom was a special education teacher. My mom also was a naturalist, and she started a nature preserve in Englewood, New Jersey, now called Flat Rock Brook Nature Center, which is massive. But in the very beginning, we would, in the formative years of the park, I remember her taking us on walks and cleaning up garbage in the park. She would take a bag with her, and the kids would pick up every single piece of garbage that we saw along the way to keep the park clean. And I remember hopping on rocks in the middle of the streams to pick up the garbage that had gotten in the water. And it gave me appreciation for a lot of things. It gave me appreciation for nature, obviously, preserving the great things that we have, cleaning up after other people, and most especially clean water. Making sure that our water sources are clean. And it's a big priority of mine even today, is clean drinking water. She also taught me to be kind to disadvantaged communities like the special needs community. And she was so kind to every single special needs or autistic kid that we came across in our daily lives or on our walks. And it made me really sensitive to what that community needs. And on the flip side, I told you my dad was a doctor, but he was an innovator, and he taught me how to find better ways of doing things, right? He was never satisfied with the status quo in terms of technology or medicine, and he was always looking for a better way, a better cure to heal people. And those are qualities that carry over in me. I'm an inventor too. Always, even as a mayor, we're always looking to do things in a better way. I hate doing things the same way just because they've been done for so many years, and always looking for a better way of doing things. And for my mom, she taught me to serve community, serve the people. appreciation, like I said, appreciate nature and other kinds of communities. And fast forward to today, I am on the board of the Great Swamp Watershed Association, which is preserving clean drinking water for us here in New Jersey. I'm on the board of an organization called SNAP, Special Needs Athletic Program. I am also on the board of an organization called MOMI, which is Museum of Makers and Innovators, trying to bring a children's museum to the state of New Jersey. We're the only state in the country without a children's museum, the only one. Liberty Science Center is just science, and we're looking to bring a STEM museum to New Jersey. And additionally, I am on the board of my synagogue, and I also serve on the Jewish Community Relations Council of Jewish Federation, working cross-culturally and across the community to build bridges and bonds and make New Jersey a better place. I was, just a couple examples, I was on the original Community Leaders Against Hate committee that got formed, bringing, again, cross-cultural, religious groups together to fight hate of all different kinds, Islamophobia, the anti-Asian hate after COVID, anti-Semitism that we feel all the time. And again, just working to bring people together and serving the community has been what I've done much of my life. So I'll leave it there and I'll let you ask some questions.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jeff.
I'll pass it over to Valerie to ask our intro questions.
Good. Thank you. So, Jeff, you'll be running to be one of 435 voting members of one of the houses in Congress. That's power, but it is limited. Realistically, what will you have the power to do as a U.S. representative, and what won't you have the power to do?
So I've developed a unique skill as mayor. I say that becoming mayor was a transformative experience in my life. So let me step back and say that back in 2002, when I first got involved, I just got involved because I was a pissed off citizen. It wasn't about politics. Like, a couple things happened to me as a resident. I thought my town was very poorly run, and I'm a person of action. So when something's wrong, I always try to do something about it, right? Believer that you shouldn't complain without trying to take some action of your own. And I started running. And in my town, we have elections every single year, the way the township committee is formed. And I ran 5 times before I won, becoming the first Democrat since Watergate to win a seat in my town. And then fast forward to 2018, when I was on the ballot with Mikey Sherrill, when she won, we took control of the township committee of Morris Township, and I became the first Democratic mayor of my town. So I've been fighting for Democrats for a long time. I know how to fight. I know how to win. And I also know how to work with the other side, because I was a minority council member when I first came on board. I was the only Democrat, but we still got many good things accomplished. The jewel of that is having a joint court between 5 towns. It was a very divisive issue at the time, giving up, we have all this home rule here in New Jersey, and giving up home rule over our court was a big deal. And it was a 3-2 vote, and I got to be the deciding vote on that. And fast forward, we're saving $250,000 a year on a shared court with Madison and the Chathams. And it's ranked as one of the best shared courts in the state. So I have the skills of working across the aisle to get things done and finding common ground, but also fighting where we need to fight for our values. And I think those are both two things that are needed right now. We can't just fight and complain. We have to find places where we can actually get things done, because we're there to govern and serve the people. So that's how I think I can get things done. Taking that approach, standing firm where we need to stand firm, but always looking for ways to accomplish things to make our country a better place.
Okay, thank you. You've addressed some of the next question, which was some of the skills that a congressperson needs to be effective. Would you add anything that you think you bring in terms of skills to that role?
Yeah, I think my skills as an engineer has been tremendous in being an effective mayor. Taking a results-oriented approach to everything we do, like having a goal, knowing the steps along the way that we need to achieve to get to that goal. And it's a skill set that I think Washington needs. And quite frankly, here in New Jersey, we talk a lot about what we want to accomplish, but the execution is often very, very poor. And an example of that is in Washington, the Inflation Reduction Act was really a clean energy bill, and there was a lot of clean energy incentives in there. And Morris Township stuck up their hand and said, we're right off of 287. It cuts our town in half. We wanted to be an EV charging center for commuters, right? Where they were looking for commuter spots along the way, and we wanted to be one of those. And we reached out to get a grant and work with DOT to bring it to New Jersey, and we couldn't get it done. As much as we wanted to do it, the execution on the government side wasn't there, and I think we need people there who have not only the good ideas, like we have in Morris Township, but also the skills to execute it. And I think having more engineers in Washington would be a really good thing for our country. No disrespect to lawyers, because we need lots of lawyers, but my personal opinion is too many lawyers in Washington, not enough engineers and scientists, and we should bring more of them down there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So often in politics, donors, political bosses, other people will have power and will try to persuade you to prioritize their interests over those of your constituents. This could be by making you dependent on their money, having control over your career, simply building relationships that make it hard for you to say no to your friends. So what have you done, or will you do, or will you keep yourself free of those entanglements and protect against them unduly impacting your judgment?
So a couple answers to that question. I always look for win-win approaches. My first approach is always to work with people to try to find a way, if we can find a way. And there's always give and take in everything you do. And as an engineer, let me say that I think I understand the progressive wing of our party and being very aspirational in trying to change our country in the ways that they want to change them. And I believe in a lot of those things too. But I believe that we can only achieve them in steps. They want to take big jumps, and I prefer to take steps along the way to make sure that things are working properly before we take the next step. So I believe in that incremental approach versus these big leaps, all going towards that same goal eventually. And I think that would be helpful in DC in getting us to move the ball. That's one part of my answer. The second part of my answer is, I stand up to people when I need to stand up to people. And you saw just this week where I refused to be a participant in the Essex County Convention. I felt it was rigged, and I boycotted the convention. And I stood up for what I thought was a very undemocratic and very unfair process. So when I need to do it, I have the strength and the will to stand up against people in a firm way, and always with an educated and clear answer about why I'm doing things, not just throwing up my hands, but explaining. I always explain to my residents in Morris Township about everything that we do, why why we make the choices that we do. And you saw it just this week. I can stand up to people when needed, but listen, I want to get to those results and work incrementally to get to the achievements that we need to do in this country. We're falling so far behind in so many ways.
Thank you. No one is perfect, but we are looking for leaders who create a culture that holds themselves and those around them to high standards of responsible and ethical public service. For any leadership position you've held, could you think back to times when you realized, oh, there's a risk here that me or my staff might be tempted to abuse power or behave unethically? What measures did you put in place to prevent that from happening? Or if someone did slip up, what did you do to correct it as quickly as possible and make sure it never happened again?
Right, so a couple answers to that. Morris Township years ago, during Democratic leadership, after we gained control of the council, we put in a pay-to-play ordinance in our town. Before the state had a pay-to-play ordinance that overruled our local pay-to-play ordinance, we put in our own. We put in a board of ethics in Morris Township. We actually created a board of ethics. It met one time, but we had it in place in case we needed it. And we took those proactive steps to make sure that we were doing the right thing all along the way. And I use that word proactive. I'm very proactive. I believe in doing that versus being reactive, because when you're reactive, you usually can't get to the best result. So one thing I like to say about engineers is that we're forward looking. We're always trying to figure out what might break or what might occur so that we can prevent it. Because when things break, they're much more expensive to fix than if you can be proactive and take a maintenance kind of approach. So we've put those things together in Morris Township and very proud of how we've operated. Does that answer the question?
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Erica, you've got the next.
Okay. Okay. So I know we're going to set a big picture questions. So our assumption is that we are in a time of attempted authoritarian takeover. Instead of politics as usual, we need to draw on the much deeper set of strategies that nonviolent civil resistance movements around the globe have used to reclaim their government when a ruler tries to insist that they get to do whatever they want with all the power and the money. So first, do you agree with this assessment? And if so, what do you think needs to happen to get us to a place where we have a healthy and functional democratic government?
Yes, so I agree with that. We saw that with the No Kings rally with these tremendous turnouts all over the country, which was incredible to see. And, this is a statistic when you get enough people involved in a movement, change actually does happen. But we also have to realize that, there are a lot of disenfranchised people in this country who are just mad. There are so many people that are mad at so many different things. And it's because we have a lot of issues that we have to address. And we got this authoritarian because so many people on the right have been disenfranchised by our country, can't find jobs, a lot of issues. And they look to the authoritarian to try to fix it. So we have a lot of work to do to make our country a better place for everybody, make it equitable for everybody, job opportunities for everybody. And I'd love to get into, the things that I'd like to accomplish. And you hear how I'd like to transform our country to make it more of a better place for everybody to find jobs, get educated, and rebuild our infrastructure. But I think at the core of this authoritarianism is just people who are really pissed off and upset at how they've been treated. And they're just looking for an answer. And we need to give them a better answer and a better approach.
What have you already done to promote having a functioning democracy, and what would your role as a representative be in doing so?
Listen, I point to what I've done in Morris Township about having representative democracy. My town was all Republican for a long time and worked hard to transform it. And I did it. I did it slowly over years. Like I said, I ran 5 times before I actually won. And I lost my first reelection and then ran and won again, and then lost my reelection again. Uh, this past November, I was on the ballot again for my 5th term. I won my 5th term. It was the first time that I served consecutive terms out of my 5 terms. So I've lost, lost a lot of times along the way. So, know how to fight. But we've transformed the way we do business in Morris Township by representing everybody. Even though I have democratic values, I understand at a local level, it's really a nonpartisan approach, and we're here to support the community. And I am so, so proud that I have a lot of Republicans in my town that say that I'm the only Democrat they've ever voted for because they respect the way I operate and the way I explain myself and the way I run things so professionally. And I think that's what everybody's looking for, really feeling like it's an equitable and democratic town that we're in. And I think we need to transfer that up the ladder to our state and our country.
One of the reasons we think our country is so vulnerable to authoritarianism right now is that we've spent decades concentrating wealth in the hands of a few, while ordinary people become less and less able to meet their basic needs. And while you don't have the power to single-handedly change that, what do you think we should be working toward in terms of ensuring that everyone can meet their basic needs and wealth isn't too concentrated?
Yeah. Yes, wealth is very concentrated not only in the hands of people, but in the hands of corporations. As an innovator, we really haven't gotten into my experience as an innovator, but I have 13 patents to my name. I've been through the patent process. I've seen how big corporations can abuse the system and how it's stacked towards them, just like our financial system, is stacked towards the more affluent people. And we need to find a better way of evening the playing field for the innovators against the corporations and the people, the people in general that we have more opportunities for people to grow their wealth. I am like, I think we should be capitalists. That's what drove our society. We want people to innovate. We want people to want to earn money and do good things and work hard. to build a business and reap the rewards of building that business. But we have to have the tools available to everybody to do that. So I don't fault the rich for being rich because a lot of them have worked really hard to get there. Listen, a lot of people have inherited it also, but we want to get people to work hard in this country to achieve, and we want to make sure that everybody we have to reestablish ourselves as the land of opportunity. And we've lost that as the land of opportunity. And some of the things I'd like to do will establish opportunity, I think, for more people to achieve the wealth that other people have and try to even that playing field, right? And yeah, maybe we need a little bit, some higher taxes. And listen, I think we have some of the lowest taxes in the world, right? And we need higher tax rates, and we need that to reinvest in our country, right? So there's a lot of things that we need to do to fix the wealth differentiation and the corporate even the corporate playing field in our country. And I have a whole lot of ideas around that. But yes, something we definitely need to attack.
Throughout U.S. history, one of the most potent weapons deployed to stop efforts to broadly distribute wealth has been stoking racism. Whether historically this includes dividing and conquering rebellions against plantation owners, breaking union attempts to challenge factory owners, persuading municipalities to destroy public goods like pools rather than share them, and persuading ordinary people to cut their own health care and social safety nets as long as it means those people don't get any. What will you or your allies do to counter this dynamic when it gets deployed to block the goals that you just talked about?
Um, so there's a lot there. I mean, you mentioned healthcare, which is a huge issue for me. So as mayor in my town, I see how increasing premiums are driving the affordability crisis on our country. For the second year in a row, in 2026 will be the third year in a row, that the increases in insurance premiums are outstripping the raises that we can give our employees. And so at the end of the day, they're literally taking home less money while at the same time prices are rising due to inflation. And it's making the country very unaffordable. So we need to fix our healthcare system. A lot of it is being driven by costs of conversations around the premiums and subsidizing the premiums. And nobody's really talking about the core issues that are driving the problems. I always, as an engineer, I like to dig down into the core reasons why we have problems. And in healthcare, we have to look at why we have these increasing premiums every year instead of talking about how much money we need to subsidize each other. But I think we need a different kind of healthcare system in this country. I do believe that basic healthcare should be a right for every single person. I'm not sure that Medicare for all is the right solution. I think that's going to be too expensive. But there should be a minimum baseline healthcare plan that every single person in this country has as a right. We're the greatest country in the world, and we should be providing the basic needs to all of our people. Same goes with food and the SNAP benefits that were cut back from people, which is just egregious, making some kids go hungry and families having to work two jobs just to put food on the table. So there's a lot of things that we need to do to even the playing field.
So another major barrier to progressive change has been the right wing exploiting people's fear of being harmed, particularly their fear of experiencing violence in their own home or community, to scare voters away from inclusive policies. To counter this, we need to adequately address people's safety fears. So what do you think works to keep people safe? And what do you see as the federal government's role in promoting that?
I just want to go back to the prior question for just 1 second
Sure.
because I want to lean into the fact that I love infrastructure. As an engineer, I love infrastructure. And you talked about, the pools and taking away pools from people. We invest in our community in so many ways. We've rebuilt neighborhoods. We've put in curbing, drainage, sidewalks. We've created a sidewalk network across town to connect people. We've invested in our pools. We have people come from other towns to use our pools. We invest in our pools. We're just spending $1 million, including $500,000 grant that Mikey Sherrill helped us get to give an entire facelift to a playground in a neighborhood. So we're investing in our town. That's a public good for everybody. So I believe in investing in things that are a greater public good, and I just wanted to make sure I touched on that a little bit. In terms of, sorry, now I
The
forgot.
question was, what do you think works to keep people safe? And what do you see as the federal government's role in promoting that?
So One of the incidents that uh, pissed me off when I first started running is I had an incident where the police was not supportive of the community. I live at a dangerous intersection off of a county road, and there was a big accident, and asked the police to come and monitor speed and help make our neighborhood safer. And they basically said they didn't have the resources to do that. And that's one of the things that stuck with me. And fast forward, I always talk to my police officers when they get sworn in, that they are part of the fabric of the community. They're not just there to enforce the law, but they're there to also help us make our town a better place, to be there as a support network for people. There's a tremendous amount of calls that they go on where people it's not a crime. People are just in need and they need help. And we're one of the first towns that actually was part of the new Arrive program, where a social, a mental health specialist would come along on calls with the police. And so I believe in having the police force, you say, protecting people that understands the broader needs of the community and is not just there for policing per se, but is there as part of the fabric of the community to support us and to be there and to celebrate with us. I tell them to stop at baseball games and hang out with the kids, right, and celebrate with them. And I think we need more of that so that people have more trust in our police and the police understand how they can be better, better part of making our world a better place instead of just enforcing the law. And it's an approach I've taken in Morris Township, and I think that would be helpful elsewhere. I hope that answers your question.
How do we counter attempts to use fear about safety to justify harm against immigrants, trans people, people of color, and other vulnerable groups?
Well, listen, like I said in the very beginning, I was part of a group called Community Leaders Against Hate. And hate is creating fear against certain types of people, and we need to push back on that in all kinds of ways. Listen, we're a country of immigrants. Everybody who lives here is an immigrant pretty much, and has been attacked at some point, I think, in their family's history of immigration. But we're a melting pot. We need to celebrate each other and respect who each other are, and all find a way to live together. Whether you're, Black, Hispanic, Jewish, Muslim, trans, we have to respect each other and respect the choices that we make, and yeah, live together. And like I said, we try to promote that all the time. I try to promote that in all the work that we do, in Morris Township and in my personal life with all the public support, the public service organizations that I work with.
And I'll pass it back over to Valerie for some issue area specific questions.
Thank you. So, Jeff, could you tell us about times when you have supported immigrants, even when doing so was risky?
I'm not sure I can point to specific incidents where I was involved, but if you're getting at the immigration crisis that we have in our country, it's part of what I call my four eyes that I want to focus on, which is innovation, infrastructure, immigration, and insurance premiums. And we've talked about three of those, so we'll talk about immigration now. Listen, we've had a broken immigration system for years and years and years, and we've kicked the can down the road for a long time. And now we are feeling the pain of not addressing the problem. Like I said, engineers like to be forward-looking because when things break, they are often ugly and expensive to fix. And that's what I think is happening here with the backlash from a lot of our country who wanted to see a fix to the immigration system. But we have to find a way for these people who came here looking for opportunity, where the land of opportunity, came here with no ill will, no ill intentions of being whatever the things that President Trump calls them out to be. They're just looking for opportunity and looking for a better way forward for their families. And there are a lot of people here that came here illegally, but have been here a long time. We have to find a way for them to stay here. They are a fabric of our society. They support our communities. I heard recently an example of a woman who has worked in, and I won't say the organization that she was there, but a not-for-profit organization, doing all of just like the big helper for the organization, doing a lot of the cleaning and fixing and everyday everyday task to keep the organization stood up, and she got called in by ICE. She's been here for 20 years. She admits that she came here illegally. But the organization says, we don't know what we're going to do without her. When she leaves, there's nobody left to replace her because we don't have certain types of workers that these jobs these immigrants are filling. We need immigrants up and down the ladder, and we need to find a way for people like her to stay in our country. She's part of our society, and maybe we need to find a way that she has to go through the regular process, but add a couple of years, right? But we can't be throwing people out of our country. We certainly can't have masked ICE agents like grabbing people and throwing them to their cars. Like that is so scary for me. Even me, who's a mayor, like I can envision myself being grabbed by a masked ICE person and thrown into a car and going, what the hell do I do now, right? So there's so much that's broken, and we kicked the can down the road until it was at such an extreme. We're in such an extreme place. We need to fix immigration up and down the ladder. And let me just touch on another element of immigration. I said we needed, up and down. My son just finished graduate school at Columbia University as an engineer, and so proud of him. 90% of his class was international students. 90%. So one problem is we're not sending our kids to graduate school. Big problem. We're not sending Americans to graduate school to be the innovators of the future. But on the flip side, we're educating, 90% of the kids who are being educated are now going back home because we don't have enough visas to keep them here. So the immigration system is broken at the bottom end and it's broken at the top end because we're sending all these really smart kids back home, which is great. They're going to do good things in their country. They want to stay here and they want to be part of this amazing country that we have. And help us build for the future, that innovation economy that I like to talk about for the future, and we send them home. So immigration is broken on so many levels. We talk about the bottom level, but it's broken at the top level too.
Have you advocated for the Immigrant Trust Act in New Jersey?
We passed a resolution in Morris Township to be a fair and welcoming community. We did that proactively, and happy to share the wording of that with you. But yeah, we're here to support everybody who's part of our community. Yes.
Could you tell us about times when you have supported trans and other LGBTQIA plus people, even when doing so was risky?
I can't say that I have had a specific experience in that. I can let you know that I do have a member of my family who is trans, and I understand what their parents went through and the turmoil that it caused and the acceptance issues that they had to face. And so I understand how people feel about it, but I haven't had to do anything about it myself. But again, I'm a big believer in, listen, people want to make their own choices. We should respect people's choices in life and find a way to live in harmony, right? We don't need we shouldn't be spending our energy hating other people. We should be spending our energy making our country a better place for all of us and for growing our economy. And we're spending so much energy in the wrong places right now.
Could you give examples of when you have prioritized climate action, even though there were competing priorities?
Yeah, that's an easy one for me because I believe in a clean energy future. When I became mayor, we started prioritizing EV charging and electrifying our town. I led the charge on making Morris Township, I believe, the first municipality in the state to require EV charging stations at all new commercial development based on a formula of parking spaces. So, X amount of chargers per number of parking spaces. And we've been very successful with that. We have EV charging stations all over our town now, which is great. Mark Jorfy, who was the mayor, one of the mayors after me in the rotation, put forward an ordinance to electrify all the buildings. So if anything's more than a certain number of units per acre, it has to be all electric. And with all of the affordable housing now coming down the pike, we have an ordinance in place to make all of those buildings electric and get ourselves off of the natural gas. But on the flip side, driving again, engineers try to take this bigger picture, and like I understand that we need this clean energy economy, but now we're seeing electricity prices spike because nobody was thinking about this transformation to clean energy economy. And if we lean in on electricity, it's a supply demand right formula, and that's going to drive prices higher, which we're seeing now, which is exacerbated by the data centers. But we didn't do proper planning to drive everybody to electric vehicles, and then not creating the supply of electricity that we need in our country to keep prices stable on the electric market. So yeah, very much focused on a clean energy future. And listen, I also look at a big picture in terms of international relations. And a lot of times in these forums, we focus on the United States, right? But half the job of a congressperson is really internationally and our standing in the world. And we need to get the world off of fossil fuels. And we've seen how fossil fuels are fueling wars around the country. We see that Russia makes all their money from fossil fuels. And if we got the world off of fossil fuels, Russia would have less money to be attacking Ukraine. If Iran had less money from fossil fuels, they'd have less money for attacking countries like Israel. And we need to think more broadly outside just our country in driving a worldwide shift to clean fuels, because it has benefits beyond just climate change. I think it'll make our world a safer place, actually.
How have you prioritized diversity, equity, and inclusion in your own organizations and more broadly, even when it's been under attack?
Uh, so again, lean into the work that I do in the community. With, for example, the SNAP program, the Special Needs Athletic Program. Being inclusive, like making sure that those families feel a part of the community, finding a place for them and their children to have a safe place, and for the parents to have some downtime. Really, really important. And with on the diversity piece, again, the community leaders against hate, we brought such a diverse group of people together to support each other. And that's always what I try to do. I am so focused on community, so focused on trying to bring people together, because I think when we know who we are, who each other, we know each other as people, as opposed to just that person over there, we get along much better, and we can move ourselves forward as a country and as a society much better. So I'm very much about community and always bringing people together. Even the sidewalk network that I talked about before, the point of building a sidewalk is all to get people from point A to point B, but it's to connect the neighborhoods, and people are now meeting up on the sidewalk when they walk their kids or go for a run. And it's created more of a community by bringing people together just via a sidewalk. So always looking at community and bringing people together.
You've referenced this before, but maybe you could explain some more. What would you do what would you support doing to make healthcare accessible and affordable for everyone, including vaccines, contraception, abortion care, gender affirming care?
Yeah, so like I stated earlier, in the interview, I believe that there should be, minimum health care for, what that minimum health care is, needs to be determined. But everybody should have basic health care, and we should be supporting that, and they should have access to the care they need. It shouldn't be restricted just because you have money. The system is so broken. I mean, so broken. The healthcare premiums going up 20, 25%, 30%, like year over year. And nobody is looking at the core problems. All I hear is people talking about premiums and how to subsidize premiums, not how to reduce costs in the system and what the drivers of those costs are. And if we can bring down costs in the system, we can make it more accessible for everybody. So it's not about just saying we need to make it more accessible. We need to find the ways of driving down the cost so it's more affordable. And when it's more affordable, it becomes more accessible. And it's a different approach to, I think, the way everybody else is looking at the problem. I take an engineering approach and try to find where the problem is in the system, and there are surely multiple problems, and find a better way of doing things, which is, like, again, the approach I've always taken throughout my life, finding ways of doing things a better way.
Is there anything else you'd like to mention that we haven't raised?
So We didn't really touch on sort of a general platform that I'd like to take down to Washington, and I spoke briefly about the four I's, which is innovation, infrastructure, immigration, and the insurance premiums, and we just talked about insurance a lot. But I haven't leaned in on the innovation. I'm an innovator. I'm an inventor. Said I have 13 patents to my name. Always working on new things. Some of them are successful, but like always trying new ways to do things, and always trying to improve the way we do things and make our world a better place with the inventions that I do. We need to transform our economy. We see AI coming. And again, always engineers, always forward looking, right? AI is coming. Everybody's transfixed with it right now. But what it's going to do is it's going to take jobs away from a lot of people. Nobody's talking about what are these people going to do for work. And I see an employment crisis coming down the pike in 5 years. And nobody's talking about it. So what are we going to do to find jobs for these new people? And we've been an old school, old style economy. President Trump with his tariffs is trying to bring certain manufacturing back to this country, which I totally disagree with tariffs and the reasons for them and everything around tariffs. But we don't need to go backwards in time to bring those old manufacturing here. We need to think about what the future of our country is going to look like in terms of an economy. And we have great innovators in our country. We have great innovative companies like NVIDIA and Google and Apple. Yes, they are now powerhouses, right? Because we've let the corporations run away and take control. But this is what our country has been built on. And we need a new wave of innovators to drive innovation in our country and transform ourselves into an innovation economy for the future. And so I'd like to lean in on that. I'm an innovator myself. I see how the patent system is broken. The little guys are having a hard time getting patents because they're being, squashed by corporate greed. But we also need to train our kids to be prepared for that education that we need for the future. I think we need to lean more heavily into STEM going forward. Part of the infrastructure that I talk about is we need infrastructure that's going to support that innovation economy. We need much more electricity, right? So we need to build out more capacity in electricity, but our electrical grid is so antiquated, and people don't know that we have a 20% loss of electricity as is being transported across our electric grid, and we have to produce 20% more electricity just to keep up. Whereas in China, they've innovated to the point where they only have 3% loss on transporting electricity across their country. They're way ahead of us on this innovation, the infrastructure we need for innovation economy. We need to focus on that. Related to that, I talked about STEM. We need new, better learning spaces for our kids to learn in. One example I lean into is in Morristown. We have a shared school district with Morristown and Morris Township. The high school is 107 years old. And I say that we're teaching kids in a school built in the last century for an economy in the next century. And so part of the infrastructure is reinvesting in our schools. They're all so old. Across CD11, oh my God, you just look at old school building after old school building, and how long can those stand up? And again, being forward looking, we need to replace them at some point. And let's start doing it now and creating those learning spaces for our kids to learn to be the innovators of the future, so that we can transform our economy and have the skills that we need to make our country an economic powerhouse once again. We're falling behind in so many ways, and we need to get better.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your vision for New Jersey's 11th Congressional District.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. And I realized there was one thing I should have done at the beginning that I forgot to do. Could you let us know the correct pronunciation of your name?
Grayzel. So like
Grayzel.
gray and then the Zell. So Grayzel. Thanks for.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thanks for
Thank you, sir.
speaking to you.